Hey guys! Now, a long time ago, like years ago, I made a video detailing my drawing of the main, at the time only 10, characters for Wings of Fire. And since the art is horrifyingly old, and we have a few more dragons to include this time, I thought it was well past time to give it another go. So today I've drawn new and improved headshots of all 15 main characters, from book 1 on up until now. I'm actually quite pleased with the turnout, even though at the time I was a little unhappy with some of my sketches. This is just going to be like the last video. I'll chat a bit about each of the characters while the recording plays over the screen. So first we have Clay, obviously. I've read his book so many times, and he's been a staple of the series for so long. I guess my favorite thing about him is that he's just such a family guy. He just wants everybody to settle down and be happy together. He's the perfect dad. I've always found his character to be like a cup of hot tea. Reassuring and calming. Clay feels like he's been around forever, because he has, but instead of feeling boring by now, he just feels like a pillar of the stories. I think it's too bad we never really got any glimpses into the Mudwing culture beyond the end of Clay's book. Their society seems so different from any of the other tribes, and I feel like it would have been neat to read about. Clay's design is pretty simple, besides the block of shapes I use, and he's pretty easy and fun to draw. I try to aim for the line between big and tough and soft and cuddly. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. Tsunami is one of my favorite characters. I always enjoyed reading about her, and as a kid I really connected to her a lot and liked her more for that reason. Especially in book 2, I still really like her point of view and struggles with taking care of her siblings, balancing being a tough leader and a loving sister. Also, blue is my favorite color, so I always enjoy drawing her. I love sea wings, and fiddling with their design is really fun. I also headcanon sea wings in general, and Tsunami, as being small for dragons because of living in the water and stuff. But also because I just love the idea of Tsunami being a small, compact little machine of violence, because she does not know how to turn it off in the first arc. Also, in the second arc, I loved her little appearances and her obvious distress with teaching. Very relatable. Glory is one of my current favorites, for art and characters. She's gorgeous, and I've drawn her a lot. I just love her color palette with the calm greens and royal blues, offset by those gorgeous red-yellow gradients. Her design is so vibrant. Anyways, Glory was always fun to read about in the first arc. I love her sarcasm and quick wit. Also, her entire character arc was just so entertaining to read about in book 3 with her taking over the Rainwings. And eventually the Nightwings too. Plus, wherever you find Glory, you find Deathbringer, and we all know how I feel about him. Next up, Starfight. I never know quite how to draw Starfight these days. Some people draw him blindfolded, but I hate to cover up his eyes. Some people do scars, which is what I did here. Usually I just ignore his blindness and draw him regularly because that's what I feel like doing. Honestly, forget he's blind a lot because it's been a long time since my last reread. Plus, for a project like this, I definitely wanted to acknowledge his character arc, so I met myself in the middle and gave him scars. Starfight's never been my favorite character. He tends to be a little bit dry for my taste, but I've always thought he has his own sense of humor when he gets bold enough to share it. Sunny. I love this drawing of Sunny. In fact, after I drew her, I had to pause my project and go draw a full body Sunny to get her out of my system. It's been a while since I'd drawn her, actually. Anyhow, I love Sunny. She's written with surprising depth for the happy character, which Tui is generally very good about doing. I actually really enjoy reading book 5, even though when I first read it, I wasn't really a fan. It just gives us a really good look at Sunny and shows that she's not just the comic relief or anything. I think she's a very motherly dragon as well, and someday I hope we get a book about her raising dragonettes of her own. And on to Arc 2. Moon has never been my favorite character, because she tends to be very shy and quiet. However, I really enjoy reading her book because of her mind-reading powers, plus she does have a pretty interesting inner monologue. I'm really glad we got at least one Nightwing in the series to have powers after so long. There's hope for the Nightwing tribe yet. I'm not usually a fan of drawing Nightwings because their colors are usually hard for me, but I like to give Moon a green tint. I don't even know if she really has that, but I think everybody just draws her green because of that iconic book 6 cover. Winter, as y'all know, isn't my favorite character either, but I've talked a lot, too, about how much I enjoy his arc. I've also mentioned the weird conundrum where every time I draw him, no matter what I try, he comes out looking unfairly handsome. It's like he's so sparkly and gorgeous he even transcends the pages of the books to dictate my art no matter what I try. I've just learned to accept that drawing Winter means making him look fabulous at the same time. He'd probably be a model if he lived in the real world. Peril! I love Peril, and I love drawing her, as you guys know. I just love her palette. The fiery reds and the gold accents are beautiful to me. Peril is fun to read about because of her dialogue, especially in book 8. She's just off the wall insane, and I love it. It's always so funny to be inside her crazy head. Plus, on a more serious level, I think she's a really interesting character because she deals with a lot of guilt, even though she was manipulated and forced to do the things she did in the arena. I think her arc is about forgiveness, from dragons like Clay and from herself, and that's an important story to share. I always think Turtle's book is so interesting and fun to read, even if I don't actually care for him much outside book 9. I just think his inner monologue is really interesting, with all his talk about main characters and stories and whatnot. He's pretty quiet, but on the inside there's a lot of interesting dialogue. I also think it's neat that Tui came back and introduced us to one of Tsunami's bazillion brothers, which was just a throwaway comment made in book 2 that ended up being pretty important. I can never quite draw Turtle the way I want to. He always comes out looking a little generic to me, and he's easy to confuse with Fathom. I generally try to saturate Turtle's colors a bit more to help differentiate between the two. And, of course, one of my favorite characters, Keeble. He's actually another character I almost never draw the way I intend to, which is kind of surprising considering how much I like him. I always either mess the colors up, or just the face shape and the frill. Stamping frills are hard. I got this headshot pretty good, I think. Anyways, I love Keeble in every book he appears in. He's witty, with funny dialogue and clever lines, but he's also super smart, so he makes a good main character. His POV was very interesting to follow. I also love his backstory. Little rags to riches spin Tui gave to it. Not to mention, I love Thorn and the Scorpion Den. I swear, when Keeble appears in book 15, his dialogue was the only reason I read it, guys. I read the whole book for his little bits of dialogue. And moving on to the third arc, we have Blue. I'm pretty neutral on Blue. He seems like a pretty colorless character at first. He steps up when he needs to, he's non-confrontational enough to keep out of trouble, but I think his POV is a bit of a precursor for book 14, what with his big focus on empathy and understanding. I'm not sure I like how that was all applied in book 11, and I don't think it had great consistency throughout the books, but then a lot of things in the third arc didn't have great consistency. I'm not even a huge fan of his design, it just seems a little bit meh to me. Which I guess is a pretty good summary for my general opinion on Blue. I don't hate him, I don't love him, he's there. Cricket, on the other hand, I actually love. She's so curious and so excited to learn everything. She reminds me of Starfight if you were like, cool. I mean, she has a personality outside her learning, and unlike Starflight, we got introduced to her in a much more interesting environment, which helps sway things in her favor too. Not to mention, I think she's gorgeous with her coloring and the dark splotches along her spine. I'm a huge fan of that. I think it's fun to see her when she appears. She tends to be almost a comic relief in that her pursuit of any kind of learning is sometimes so ill-timed you can't help but laugh at it. But overall, I like her. I especially like her and Blue together. Next, Sundo. I'll admit, I really liked Sundo at first, and I'm a little closer to meh these days. It's actually not even all her fault. Sundo is a product of her writing, and her characterization suffers for it. Her character wobbles quite a bit, actually. We don't know if she's all anger, or if she's all love and affection, or if she's a leader, or if she's just trying to let somebody tell her what to do. And sure, that's not a bad thing on its own, but how it was handled just left me confused as to her motivations and goals every time I saw her. However, I do still enjoy Sundo. She's a lot like Tsunami, just without the sibling stuff I'm so fond of. Not to mention, like a lot of dragons from the third arc, her design, whew! I adore it. Second to last, we have Snowfall. I enjoyed her book, to be honest, and some of her inner struggles were pretty intriguing, but unfortunately her character seems underdeveloped to me. Unless I misremember, she's the first character to have a POV book who doesn't really feature at all in any other books. I know she gets mentioned in passing in like book 7 and probably book 15, but everyone else had several books to display character progression. Snowfall kind of just appeared and then blipped back away. That being said, her POV was very unique to the series, a new personality we hadn't seen yet, and that made her really fun to read, at least the first time around. And I do enjoy drawing her, so Snowfall has that much going for her too. And last but not least, Luna. I really liked her in book 11, but I didn't care for her as much in book 15. Her character seemed to change a lot in that book, and she was just kind of boring and exhausting to follow as a main character. There wasn't a lot of tension in that book. But to be honest, I think a lot of that comes down to the writing issues themselves, not Luna as a character. So I'll think about her book 11 appearances and say that I like her. She's got some spunk to her attitude, and she's an artist? What more could you want? I do like her design more than Blue's, although I could make changes to both of them. The green and gold color palette is nicer for me, though. And that'll wrap this project up. Holy moly, what a ton of headshots! This feels like it took forever, and I even know it didn't. Be sure to check it out on Redbubble. I know that the last set of headshots I did was popular, and you can find this one on shirts, mugs, stickers, and tons of other things. Anyhow, feel free to let me know in the comments who your favorite characters are. I love hearing about it. Be sure to check out the description of this video. It's filled with helpful links to my Redbubble, where you can buy this piece, and my DeviantArt, where you can see others like it. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe for others. Thanks so much for watching, and please have a wonderful week.